Good morning. I hope you're all well today, at whatever time you listen and watch. Today I talk about the ninth wave and recognizing the inside job. Yes, I could be talking about 9/11 and a myriad of other false flag operations. However, there is more to see than merely blaming the politicians and other movers and shakers in our world. Unless we see that our lives are also inside jobs, we miss the point, the lesson of the illusion. Recognition must be followed by responsibility. I sincerely contend that 9/11 was the beginning of the awakening. Now, some could say, well, it really started back in the harmonic convergence in 1987, or they might cite other little things that have happened here and there, some known. Of course, the unknown ones wouldn't be mentioned, would they? Because they're unknown. But 9/11 was the point in time in human history when the masses began an exponential increase in awareness that our media and governments and the people that are supposed to be in charge of the world and responsible for the things that are going on were not telling us the truth. I mean, it was so obvious to people that had open minds and open hearts and did not have an agenda to try to maintain the status quo. It was obvious that those buildings were brought down by some manner other than airplanes hitting them. Whatever that manner was, it wasn't the result of airplanes running into buildings, because that had happened before, and there had been fires before, and never before had buildings been brought down. But I'm not going to belabor that point, because that's not the point that I'm talking to you about. That was merely the wake-up call. There were false flag operations prior to 9/11 and subsequent to 9/11. But 9/11 was the one that the world took notice of. And it's even been talked about by the leader of Iran and the United Nations and everything else. The world knows that the United States insiders, and most likely the Mossad from Israel, were highly, highly involved in the 9/11 scenario. So what? We recognize that. Now, are we also willing to recognize that the things that are happening to us in our own lives are also inside jobs? We are not victims of circumstances, although it may appear so at first glance and with a superficial reckoning of how events came to be what they are. But anyone that takes the time to go inside of themselves and ask themselves, what does it mean? What does it mean? What's the lesson in this thing? What am I supposed to be getting out of this? What am I supposed to be learning? And we start getting quiet and getting honest. And we recognize that everything that's out in our world is in me. It takes some time to get to that place for some people. Actually, for all people, I think. It took time for me. And I'm supposed to be one of the wise ones. Yeah, right. But what is wisdom? Wisdom is simply being able to look at things from as many perspectives as possible. And especially wisdom is taking responsibility for what you recognize. And saying it's not about them or some other person, some other entity. This is my world that I'm perceiving. And everything that I see, I have a hand in it, some way or another. What is my responsibility? That's wisdom. When you get to the point that you begin asking yourself the really serious questions, you get over the shame and the blame games. Now you may say, Ron, you just said shame first. Well, you see, oftentimes when we are told that we're responsible, we go into shame, don't we? Or into defense mechanisms of anger and other things expressed, even rage and sometimes even violence, because the shame is so deep. No, I'm talking about getting beyond the shame here and beyond the blame. Both of those games, the shame-blame game, are foolishness because they're not looking at the whole picture. They're not connecting the dots. That which is in me must, by the laws of creation, must manifest outside of me. What is going on inside of me when I am at war? When I am deceiving myself? When I am living a lie and trying to convince people that my lie is the truth? When I'm unwilling to be intimate with my own feelings and admit my own thoughts, the inner dialogue that I have with me, that nobody else but me knows about. When I'm willing to take responsibility for that, all of a sudden the world starts looking different. I'm realizing, number one, how powerful a creator I've been in creating the illusion. That's taking responsibility, folks. I'm creating the illusion by what I'm telling myself, by my inner chatter, by the ego voice. I am creating what I'm experiencing in the world, whether I like it or not, whether I want it or not, whether I'm completely conscious of it or not. I'm creating it. The world isn't something that happens to me. The world is something that flows from me. Do you hear what I'm saying? Are you able to comprehend and get it? You are not a victim, neither am I. I could be a victim of the lawyers and the bankers in the lawsuit issue. See, I have to face third-dimensional challenges just like the rest of you. I have to face my own loneliness sometimes when I wish I had somebody to share with. I have to face the things that are in my life. Why? Because they're coming from me. They're coming from my soul. I'm recognizing in the underworld of my own subconsciousness and my own unconsciousness, I'm recognizing the real driving force in the creation of my experience. It is my own thought and my own feeling and my own action or inaction that is creating the result of my life. It's not about anybody else. It's about me. And whereas my first inclination at hearing such things might be to deny it, might be to get away from it, might be to strike out and scapegoat someone else and make them responsible, because I don't want to be responsible for what's happening in my world. That might be my first response. But then I'm just teaching myself more lessons by resisting the truth. And there's a lot of resisting the truth going on in the world today. I see it in the response of the lawyer to my initial brief in the appeal before the appeals court. She doesn't get it. She's saying, I'm being controversial because from where she's standing, she can't see it yet. And she thinks that the other judges that are going to be listening to this can't see it either. She's saying you can't even make a judgment based on the information he's provided. It's not just about double spacing or 1.5 times spacing. That's not the issue. She brought that up because I brought it up. I admitted it up front, that I was purposefully not doing it the way that they recommended. Why? Because I don't take orders from them, because they're my equal. They're not my superior. I'm responsible for my life. Nobody else is. And all that I need to become fully fulfilled is to take responsibility and recognize that all the answers that I need for my life are inside of me. Now, I may bat them off of other people. I may ask sometimes even for help. But ultimately, all the answers are inside of me, and they're going to come to me as I'm willing to listen. When the student is ready to hear, the teacher will appear. But ultimately, I am my teacher, as you are yours. And this is what this whole scenario is about that's unfolding on our planet. As people awaken, we tend first to look out there and say, it was an inside job, it's the politician's fault, it's the banker's fault, it's the lawyer's fault, it's the corporation's fault. Are all of those things true? Absolutely they're true. But they're only part of the truth. The big part of the truth is, what is my role in it? If I'm going to be fighting them, I have war going on in here. How can I expect, realistically, to achieve peace in my life when I'm allowing the war to rage inside of me, when I'm fighting an enemy? When I'm recognizing an enemy that's not part of me. And that's the illusion, because the enemy too is part of me. Do you understand, folks, what I'm saying? These are lessons that Spirit is giving me as I go into my meditation room, as I go into my secret place of the Most High, as I question Ron about Ron's life. And Spirit saying, are you willing to take responsibility for Ron's life now? And the Spirit would be telling you the same thing, asking you the same question. Are you willing to take responsibility for your life right now? No more blaming somebody else. Are you willing to love yourself? Matters of the heart. Matters of the heart. Out of the heart flow all the issues of life. From the heart. From the deep consciousness that is subconscious to our ego mind. That is unconscious to our rational point of view. But we must make that subconscious and that unconscious conscious. And we have to take responsibility for that. Each of us in our own lives. And what happens? When we start doing that, we wake up. We transform from the inside out. We begin to see clearly. We begin to unravel our own illusions. And the whole world changes. It's about recognition, yes. And it's about taking responsibility even more than recognizing the truth of how our world came to be where it is. Can you see why it's changing? Because I can see it, and so can you. You can't run away. No matter how hard you try, you can't run away. Because it's the truth. You're going to face the truth. Like it or not, sooner or later, you're going to face the truth and recognize that all of life is an inside job.